Hello, everyone, and welcome to our free March 2024 webinar, The Pay Diagnostic Review, Your Key to Profitable QBO Cleanups. Thank you for joining me today. Happy spring. And as you're joining me, let me know in the chat where you're joining from. I always love to know where you are joining me from because we always have people from all over the world. So as everyone is joining, again, welcome to the Pay Diagnostic Review, your key to profitable QBO cleanups. And Natalie says she cannot, you cannot hear me? Okay, hold on one second. Oh, I think some of you can hear me. Okay. Let me know in the chat if you still cannot hear me. And then we'll see what we can do. But I see, okay, Jill says she can hear me. So she is handling it in the background. Thanks for joining me again. And we have so many of you joining. Let me scroll up here to the chat. Rachel, Chelsea, Sue from Michigan, Natasha from Tulsa, Oklahoma, Michelle from Texas, Diana can hear me. Thank you, Diana. Chris from Loveland, Colorado, Tabitha from Surprise, Arizona, Rhonda from upstate South Carolina, Holly from Idaho, Shannon from Virginia, and let's see, Stephanie from Indiana, Glidis from Florida, and Nellie can hear us now. Wonderful. So if, Jill, I think we have some people who says they can and some that they cannot hear us. So you might let them know in the chat how they can hear us. And Donna, listening from the Disneyland train. How exciting, Donna. Margaret from Collinsville, Texas. Diane from California. Raymond from Columbus. Aaron from Washington State. Diana from Southeast Wyoming. And Merlin from Melbourne, Florida. How exciting. Diana from Dallas, Fort Worth, and Courtney from New Orleans, Holly from Kansas. So again, welcome everyone to our free March 2024 webinar, the Pay Diagnostic Review, your key to profitable QBO cleanups. And we have Lynn from Canada. Thanks for joining us. Another Canadian, Rachel. And Anne from Canada also. I guess lots of Canadians joining at the same time. So welcome once again. So as everyone is joining, I'll go ahead and get started with an introduction, administrative things as everyone is joining. So if you have just learned about me from social media and or maybe found me on TikTok or Instagram, or you may already know who I am, but my name is Veronica Wasek. I am the founder of the 5MB Academy for Virtual Bookkeepers, where I help you to become a better bookkeeper and help you to reach, really build a business that will sustain your dreams and goals for your life. I am the founder of Maven, where we provide bookkeeping services for Shopify and TikTok shop sellers. I founded the 5-Minute Bookkeeping YouTube channel and blog, as well as the 5-Minute Bookkeeping community on Facebook. I have been named a top 10 and top 100 QuickBooks Pro advisor. I am a CPA and also advanced certified in QuickBooks Online. I live in Sugar Land, Texas, right outside of Houston. And you can find me on Instagram and now on TikTok at 5-Minute Bookkeeping. Let's see. And I do, I spend my weekends with my husband in our 90-acre farm in the country, about 90 miles west of Houston, and really love being there. And in fact, we were just there Sunday and yesterday, so I'm a little tired today from all the excitement and all the work we were doing out at the farm. And we're also building our forever home at our farm. So on the left, you can see right now is the preliminary, just the kind of the skeletons of our house. In the middle, a carport, and on the right, a big barn. So in the process of doing that, And I tell you what, it is exciting to be building a new home, but it's also very challenging to build a custom home because you have to decide on every single thing, and it's very overwhelming, and that keeps us very busy nowadays. Just some administrative announcements. All content, handouts, recordings, etc., are under copyright, and you may not record this webinar. There will be handouts. We have links to the handout. You should see a tab that says handouts. We will also be emailing today's recording and the handout. So if you have to leave early, you didn't find the handout, etc., all of that will be mailed to you. With me, I have Jill Keel. She is my assistant, so you'll see her in the chat. She'll be helping me along. Speaking of the chat, use the chat to talk amongst yourselves, comment, etc. If you have a question for me, please put that in the questions tab, and I will answer your questions after I complete my presentation. And I will try to cover as many questions as possible. In today's agenda, we'll talk about getting paid to do a diagnostic review for clients. We'll talk about the selling process. How do you offer a paid diagnostic review to a client? We'll go over the diagnostic review process and methods for pricing cleanup work. And as I said, we'll also do Q&A at the end. Let me check the chat just in case. Yep. Hello, everyone. So we're going to be talking about cleanup. So I want to make sure that we define what a cleanup is. I always like to define what I'm teaching about, just so that we're all on the same page. So cleanup is really where we take messy and incomplete books. So your client would already be using QuickBooks, for example. So they attempted to use QuickBooks, they messed it up. Maybe they used it for a little bit and then they didn't update it. And the cleanup is the process where we will review the books, we will catch them up, we will fix and clean up things, and we will get everything cleaned up and reconciled. And the goal is to have complete, accurate, and tax-ready financials. Also keeping in mind that a cleanup, and especially in QuickBooks, should be done at a transactional level, and we want to avoid doing just journal entries to sort of move things around. QuickBooks Online does not play very well with journal entries. There are some times when you can use journal entries, but most of the time, if you're trying to fix something at a transactional level, it must be done using a transaction in QuickBooks rather than a journal entry. But there are a lot of challenges to pricing cleanup work. And I've seen it all. My team and I have done hundreds of cleanups, and we have seen it all. And I struggled in the beginning, even before I had a team, of really working with cleanup clients, pricing cleanup work, doing cleanup work. We're not getting paid to diagnose the books ahead of time. You may not have any idea what's wrong with the books when somebody comes to you. Maybe they're saying like, just reconcile it, just clean it up, clean up the chart of accounts. And clients will throw these terms at us, and sometimes we assume that, oh, they just need a bank reconciliation. Well, no, they're using the word reconcile to mean a whole lot of things. And I used to get burned in the beginning because they would just say, oh, reconcile and clean up the chart of accounts. And I thought, no, that's all I need to do. And realizing that, no, they have a complete mess well beyond what they think is wrong with their books. We have no idea how to price cleanups. You may be pricing by the hour, and the client gets sticker shock when you complete that cleanup and you give them an invoice. And let me know in the chat if that has happened to you, because that has happened a lot to me. And sometimes we don't even invoice the client for all of the work that we did, because we think, they're just not going to pay us this much anyway, so I'll just mark it down. And I've done that, and it's cost me tens of thousands of dollars. You also may not have an agreement with the client on a desired outcome. So again, the client thinks you're reconciling, you're doing things, and then you're just going to do a cleanup by the hour. Maybe you haven't agreed with the client on what's really wrong with the books and what needs to be done to get them cleaned up. And the other big problem is the client tries to control the process. Let me know if you, in the chat, have you worked with controlling clients? Because as I said, then they'll just say, oh, reconcile it, clean it up a little. Or my favorite, I don't want you to clean up anything for prior years. Just, I just want to start fresh this year. But we have a balance sheet that's totally messed up, and it's all those errors are not going to go away. And Diane says, yes, her first cleanup, that, and I'm not sure if now this is an answer to my first question or the second question, where the client tries to control the process. But yes, so this is something that you all have dealt with or will deal with, unless you implement what I'm going to teach you. And as I said, my team and I have done hundreds of cleanups, but in the beginning, I had the same struggles, the same issues as you, and I was giving away work for free. I started marketing myself as a QuickBooks Online expert and did very well through that marketing. And a lot of people would come to me and say, hey, I tried to use QuickBooks Online and now my books are completely messed up. And so I would just say, okay, well, if you give me accountant's access to your books, then I will review your books and I will tell you exactly what's wrong with your books. So I would do that, but I did it completely for free. And then I would get the client or they weren't even my client, the prospective client on a call. I would tell them exactly what was wrong with their books, and they would just ghost me. They would disappear, never to be heard from again. So I wasted all of this time. I wasted hours looking through their books, and I gave away all of this value, and who knows what they did with the list that I gave them. They knew exactly what was wrong with their books. And I realized after doing that enough times that there is value in telling someone what is wrong with their books and diagnosing their books, and that I deserve to be paid for that. I deserve to be compensated to tell someone what is wrong. And when you consider other businesses, a doctor, a mechanic, they're all charging you upfront to diagnose you. Either diagnose you, and if you're working with a doctor, they're going to charge you for everything that they do. And an auto mechanic also, they charge now for a diagnostic fee. And there are many other professions and trades and service people that you work with that are going to charge you before they do anything for you, because really we all deserve to be compensated for that time and effort. So let's go over the paid diagnostic review, because as I said, I was giving away all of this time, all of this value, and I thought, okay, yes, I do need to be paid for that, but now I need a system. I need a way to not just like send somebody an email with, here's what's wrong, because the value wasn't coming across. So I needed a way to have a system for first doing the diagnosis and then also reporting what I found to my client. And that became the paid diagnostic review. The first goal of a paid diagnostic review is to get a full scope of work before you clean up or catch up your client's books. So before you dive into a cleanup, you need to step back and do a diagnosis. And the second goal is to get paid for that diagnosis, get paid to assess the books. So what is a diagnostic review? It is a paid project. It allows you to diagnose the problems that your client has with their books and to assess the level of cleanup needed. You will get a clear scope of work. You're able to assess the health of your client's QBO data. You'll be able to identify the transactions that need to be brought up to date, and it allows you to sell or to recommend additional work to your client. So it's really the starting of the relationship and starting that relationship right. Working with a client who values what you do, who's willing and able to pay you for what you do, and then continuing that relationship beyond the paid diagnostic review. So what is the value of it? Well, you learn what the client is like to work with, because sometimes, we get these clients, and I've been there, okay, where you get clients that you think, why? Like, why am I working with this person? It's just not working out. I don't like them, or they're not responsive, or they don't respect me. And so by doing that paid diagnostic review, which is a much shorter engagement, you get to know what they're like to work with. You'll be able to get a scope of work and to reduce surprises along the way. You'll give your client a recommendation of services, which then positions you in an advisory role. And again, they can see the value and not just see you as, in any bookkeeper, and really lose sight of the value that you can bring to them. It puts you in control, because, as I said before, clients think that you just need to reconcile, clean it up a little bit, forget the prior years, just do this. And no, it puts you in control rather than the client, who's not qualified to tell you what's wrong with their books or how to clean them up. And it also lowers the risk to the client, because they can see what you're like to work with. And they can also, again, commit for a smaller project for a lower dollar amount, to then and see that, oh yeah, she does know what she's doing, or he knows what he's doing. I can continue working with this person. So what are some options for pricing the diagnostic review? And really, I leave it up to you to decide how you're going to price it. Really, the first thing is just charge for it. Don't overthink how much you're going to charge for it. Don't worry about, will it take me 3 hours? Will it take me 5 hours? That's not really the point. The point is that you're starting that relationship with a good client who's willing and able to pay for your services. And so we're not trying to get rich off of the diagnostic review. We're trying to charge for the diagnostic review to then essentially qualify a good client. So the first option on the left is to price based on your client's annual revenues. So it could be, for example, if they have $500,000 in annual revenues, $300 to $500. If they have $500 to $1 million in revenues, you could charge $500 to $750, and then over $1,950,000. And by the way, I noticed that, at least on my end, I see that the text here looks a little pixelated on my handout. I'm not sure if that's just because we converted it to PDF and it maybe didn't convert properly, but I apologize if it doesn't look very clear on your end. I believe you should still be able to read it, but the quality doesn't look that great. So option one, price based on your prospective client's annual revenues. Option two, price based on the number of months that you are reviewing. And really, the key is to be able to price it quickly and easily. This is not something that you want to tell the client that I'll get back to you in a week with a proposal. We want to give the client that pricing on the spot when you're talking to them. And as I said, just pick a price, something that you're comfortable with, and start with that. As you gain more confidence, you'll start charging more. I currently charge a minimum of $1,000, essentially $997 for a diagnostic review. And then it goes from there. But I started charging $300. So as you can see, that over time, I became more confident. I now work with e-commerce sellers, so we have a niche. We are able to charge more to those clients. And so again, pick something that works and get started. Don't overthink it. All right, so now that you know you should be charging for a paid diagnostic review, and now you know that you need to come up with a price for that paid diagnostic review, we're going to talk about the selling process. And I know that selling scares all of us, and including me. And I call it selling, but really, I don't feel like I sell things. I recommend things to clients. I recommend services to them based on what they're telling me. And sometimes that may be that, you know what, we're not going to work together because maybe what they need and what we offer is not the same thing. But it's all about recommending services that will benefit the client. So when you're talking to a prospective client, you really need to pay attention to the pain points that they have. And most of the time they will tell you everything. And I used to not listen to them because I thought I hear it all the time, but in fact, that's where the money is. Okay, so usually they, at least they're telling me their books are messed up. They try to do their books on their own. They're not sure if their books are correct. They connected QuickBooks to, whatever app, PayPal, Shopify, Square, Stripe, etc. They connected an app to their QuickBooks. Now their books are messed up. Their last accountant or bookkeeper messed up their books. The bank balance in QuickBooks does not equal their bank balance. Or maybe their employee has been doing the books, but they need someone to check the books. So there's a number of things they're going to tell you. And as they're telling you that, I want you to really pay attention to that. In fact, when they're telling me, I'm typing in, right? I'm taking notes for everything, every pain point that they tell me. So once they give me all of their pain points, the sales conversation, again, is more of a recommendation, is so you're going to listen, and then you will say, here is what I recommend. Okay, so think of yourself as a doctor. You're recommending a treatment, a service provider. You're recommending a service. So and really this helps so much because we take the pressure off of ourselves. I don't have to be this great salesperson, and I don't think I am that great of a salesperson, but I'm a good listener and I'm a good recommender. So I recommend a service that then is in line with what my client or prospective client needs. So then I will say, here's what I recommend. So this is the sales conversation, and feel free, you may use this, take a picture, take a screenshot, and use this as your script. So here's how it goes. I recommend doing a paid diagnostic review of your books so that I can get a clear picture of what's wrong with your books. At the end of my review, I will go over my findings with you. I will also give you upfront pricing for my services. The pricing for the paid diagnostic review is, okay, and I always use the word paid in front of diagnostic, paid diagnostic review, then the pricing for the paid diagnostic review is. So let's say that is $300. So then you're going to say the price for the paid diagnostic review is $300. And by the way, when talking to clients about pricing, take all the emotion out. There's no need. You're having a business conversation. So take the emotion out. Just tell them what it is. It's $300. Just very matter of fact. Now, most of the time, that prospective client may go for the, hey, okay, $300, I can do that. But they are going to ask you, how much will you charge for the cleanup? And rightly so, because they want to know. So here's what you need to say. And again, take a screenshot, take a picture. Of course, we will be sending out the handouts as well. I don't know exactly what the pricing will be for the cleanup until I complete the paid diagnostic review. But clients your size normally pay, okay, so let's say, I'm going to say, but clients your size normally pay $3,000 to $5,000 for a cleanup. So here's where now you're qualifying the prospective client, because now if they say, well, that is way more than I wanted to pay, now you know that you don't have a prospective client who would make a good client because they can't afford your services. And at least you're finding that out now instead of waiting till, okay, well, first I'm going to do a free diagnostic because I know they could become a client. And then, well, you know what? I'm just going to heavily discount that cleanup because, they're so nice. And I think they could become a long-term client. And then you're trying to work with them for the monthly services and you realize they don't, or they can't afford your services. And so you think of all of the opportunity cost of, now I try to work with this person who's not really an ideal client when I should have been focusing on someone who was an ideal client for me. So again, be ready to tell them what a client their size normally pays for a cleanup and give them a range. And as I said, we have done hundreds of cleanups, so I have a pretty good idea of what we charge. And this may be a bit more challenging for you in the beginning, but you do need to give them some sort of range so that they can eliminate themselves. So if it's way more than they wanted to pay, then they will tell you, yeah, that's more than I wanted to pay. And then you end the call and then you move on. So what are the results? What is the takeaway from being able to do all this? Now you have a pre-qualified prospect. So someone who now is willing to pay for the diagnostic review and okay with your price range is a pre-qualified prospective client. They show that they value your proposed services. They demonstrate that they're willing and able to pay for your services, and they show that they're willing to let you control the process as well. Because if they're willing to go through the diagnostic and the cleanup and then ideally monthly services, then they're not trying to control things and like, no, well, I only need you to do this, or I only need you to do that. Then they'll let you be in control, and as you should be. Now let's talk about performing the diagnostic review. And Dale says this was very helpful. Thank you. You're very welcome. So performing the diagnostic review. When we do that, we're going to request some information from the client. We're going to get accountants access to their QuickBooks Online. We're going to request the PDF copies of the business bank and credit card statements for the periods that we're reviewing. So for example, here in the US, we're in the midst of tax season. And so most of us are probably trying to help clients with their 2023 cleanups. So in that case, you would request the business bank and credit card statements for all of 2023. And then you would request a copy of the last corporate tax return that they filed. Whether it's and again, for US, it's S Corp, C Corp, and partnership. In the diagnostic review, it's best to use a checklist so that you make sure that you go through all of the sections that you need to cover. And what are we going to diagnose? First of all, the tax return reconciliation. So remember, I said that you're going to request a copy of the last corporate tax return for S Corp, C Corp, and partnership. So for those legal entities, we're going to assess whether they need to reconcile the balance sheet back to the tax return balance sheet. We're going to review bank accounts. We're going to review undeposited funds, profit and loss accounts, balance sheet accounts, accounts receivable and accounts payable agings. We'll review the chart of accounts, the products and services list, and if they're using payroll, inventory, and sales taxes in QuickBooks, we will review that as well. Now, if you work with clients who are in a specialized industry, you may also need to review additional items. So for example, for our e-commerce clients, we're doing an additional level of review just for all of their e-commerce transactions. And I see some questions in the chat. Make sure that you put those in the Q&A because I will be then looking at the questions in the Q&A. So here's an example of reviewing the bank and credit card accounts. And again, it looks a little pixelated on my end, so I hope you can still read it. And maybe it's just me, I don't know. So in this case, and as I said, we're reviewing 2023. So the period being reviewed was January 1 to December 31 of 2023. And we have we are looking at a bank statement and a credit card, and we're looking to see when were the accounts last reconciled? Were there any old and cleared items in the bank reconciliation? Were there any auto adjustments or changes? Is the bank feed connected in QuickBooks? You'd be surprised because you think everybody must do that, but yet we just work with a client and their accountant never connected to the bank feed for whatever reason. And then something else to check, are there any old transactions in the bank feeds window that maybe should have been added or matched and they have not? So the key here is that we're going to have a methodical way of checking things. Not only what are we checking, what accounts, what types of transactions, but then some of the biggest issues within those types of accounts. And then if you see at the bottom that we have a section for findings and recommendations. So based on the review, then we're going to write down all of the things that we found and that we recommend for our client. And what we put in that section, in that findings and recommendations section, is what ends up in the client's report, which I will talk about in a moment. So here's just a quick example of, okay, how do you know if the account was reconciled or if there's a change in the opening balance in QuickBooks? So as you can see, and I'm sorry, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but if you look at the bottom left-hand corner where it says beginning balance, and it shows that little yellow exclamation icon. And then at the top, you can see that it says your account isn't ready to reconcile yet. Your beginning balance is off by $38,541. So we know that the account was reconciled through September 30th of 2023, but that something was changed. Maybe transactions were changed or deleted, and now the bank reconciliation needs to be fixed because transactions were changed or deleted. And so this is what then ends up on the client's report, letting them know that, okay, we have to fix the beginning balance, as well as, okay, you're only reconciled through September, and now we need to reconcile October, November, and December of 2023. Here's another example when you look at the reconciliation report and you're looking for old uncleared transactions. And in this case, we have a client that has some really old uncleared transactions in their bank reconciliation. And just as an FYI, when you do a bank reconciliation, you should not have old uncleared transactions because your bank really isn't reconciled. It means that you have transactions that maybe were duplicates or invalid transactions, and now they're affecting the bank balance in QuickBooks. And so again, as I said, you're not truly reconciled until all of that gets cleaned up. Here's another example of our checklist. This is for expenses. So again, going through on the left, looking for specific issues that and again, as I said, we've done hundreds of cleanups, so we know what to look for. Maybe expenses that are negative, unusual expenses, higher than normal, lower than normal, uncategorized expenses, and you will see that most of the time, uncategorized expenses in Ask My Accountant, expenses in reconciliation discrepancy, transactions that should have been recorded as cost of goods sold rather than expenses, personal expenses, etc. And so we have our checklist. We go through the findings. We write down the account name in the comments, the number of transactions that we found in that account, the date range, the dollar amount, and then we'll make notes for ourselves for internal comments. Now, the reason that we're getting to this level of detail is because we will be showing this in the client's report. And the goal here is I don't want to be mean, but we want to rub salt in the wound. Okay, so the client wants you to clean up the books. And so you need to be able to show them what's wrong with the books so that, again, your value goes up. When you can show your client what is wrong with their books, your value goes up. Because if you know what's wrong with their books, then we would assume then you know how to clean it up, or they'll make that assumption. And there's value in that, rather than the bookkeeper or accountant that says, well, I'll just charge you $50 an hour to clean up the books, but they're not telling them what's wrong. And here's an example of, if you look at the P&L and some of the things that you can look for. So for example, you have advertising expenses that are very high. So I would definitely drill down and see what is in there. Maybe you have miscategorized transactions, maybe duplicates. You have amounts in Ask My Accountant. You have 2 bad debt accounts. And then rent also looks very high. So this is, again, I cannot get into how to do the diagnostic step by step, but here are some ways in which we do the diagnostic. And again, uncategorized expenses, reconciliation discrepancy. So you can work down the P&L report and go through your checklist. But as I said, I don't have time to show you how to do all the diagnostics. But if you go to my YouTube playlist, I have a lot of videos showing you how to go through the balance sheet and the profit and loss and how to do the diagnosis. It does not include the checklist, but it does show you how to go line by line. So make sure that you get that. And again, we'll send the handout and we'll have this link. And Jill, if you would like to share that link with them. So that is just the cleanup and diagnosis checklist from our YouTube channel. All right, so you've gone through the diagnostic review. Now you're going to give your client a report of findings and recommendations. What is the value of this report? So as I said, we have charged for the diagnostic, we have done the diagnostic, and now we're going to go over the report with our client. What is the value of that report? It's a professional report. It positions you as a professional, as an advisor. It helps to communicate your value because now the client is getting a deliverable. And it really shows that you have your stuff together. Because as I said before, I was kind of giving them an email with like, here are some things. And I thought, well, if I'm charging for it, they should get a deliverable. So I put together the report of findings and recommendations. You want to go over that report with your client over Zoom. If we work with a lot of remote clients, so we do it over Zoom. We go over the report with the client line by line. I will also show them the problem in QuickBooks. So if I say like, okay, you have all of these old items in undeposited funds, then I will then go to QuickBooks and I will show them their undeposited funds so that they can see. And again, we're rubbing salt in the wound. We're really visually showing them what is wrong. You'll be able to give your client pricing for your cleanup at the end of presenting the report of findings. And the meeting is normally about 45 minutes to an hour because it takes time to go through the report and show them things. And then a lot of times they will ask you questions. So here's an example and an excerpt of the report of findings. So you'll have the company name, QuickBooks Diagnostic Review, report of findings and recommendations, and then you can insert your logo. Again, make it look very nice and professional. And I do this in Word, by the way. So nothing fancy, it's in Word. And it will show them the period that we reviewed, then our findings and recommendations, as well as the purpose. Like, why is it important to review undeposited funds? So it will have the purpose of the review, and then it will have the findings. So in this case, we're saying that there are 60 old transactions totaling $158,000, giving them the date range, and then we give them a recommendation. So the recommendation is to review and clean up undeposited funds. We'll do the same with the profit and loss account. So it'll list exactly what we found, the account name, number of transactions, dollar amounts, and we'll tell them what needs to be done. So for example, if you look at the first bullet that says vendor bills are incorrectly entered in the jobs materials income account. The second item, we said there are 3 transactions totaling to $8,690 in the uncategorized income account that need to be reclassified to the correct income account. So again, just line by line. And again, I show them the report. I show it to them on QuickBooks. And remember that you're acting as an advisor, as a professional bookkeeper, accountant, showing your client what you found and giving them an expert recommendation for what needs to be cleaned up. And remember, there is value in that, because as I said, a lot of other bookkeepers and accountants are just saying, yeah, I'll do your cleanup for X per hour, but they're not taking the time to show the client what is wrong. Now, I'm excited to talk about cleanup pricing strategies, because I think some of the things I've covered before you might have heard me talk about, but I had not talked about cleanup pricing strategies recently. So let's get into that. So there are different pricing methods when pricing cleanups: hourly, fixed, and a price range. If you're looking to do hourly pricing, and I know a lot of newer bookkeepers do hourly pricing just because you're not quite sure how to price something. And I did in the beginning. I quickly changed that. So it was something that I did for a very short time and decided that no, I need to give a fixed price, just because I don't like to work with people who charge me by the hour. And so I figured, if I don't like it, I'm sure my client is not comfortable paying me by the hour either. But it is a starting point for some bookkeepers who are just not sure. But the problem is that you're doing it because you don't know how much to charge. You're not sure about the scope. The client may not pay you, so there's risk to you because the client may not pay you, and then you haven't agreed on an outcome with your client on, well, here are all the things that are wrong with your books, and here's what we will fix, and here's the price for that. So that is a desired outcome. It's sort of like saying, I want to go get a haircut, and I don't necessarily want to know how he or she's cutting my hair. I just want to know I'll have a nice haircut when I'm done. So the desired outcome is a haircut, and maybe a blow dry and a style. So it doesn't matter to me how long it takes that person, or are they charging me for the haircut and the style, or washing my hair, or coloring my hair, or whatever. It's just the desired outcome. And so there are risks to hourly pricing. There's also fixed pricing. With fixed pricing, you provide upfront pricing to your client. The client knows exactly how much the cleanup will cost. You agree upon an outcome with the client. Again, that these are all the things that are wrong. Here is the price. But you must be confident that you have properly diagnosed the client's books, and you do risk unexpected surprises that you didn't include in your estimated pricing. And that has happened to me. For a while, I was doing lots of fixed pricing. It'll be this, and it'll be that. But there was always something that maybe didn't come up during the diagnostic, or the client all of a sudden says, "Oh, did I tell you I have all these other bank accounts that I forgot to tell you about?" And so while fixed pricing gives a lot of peace of mind to the client, and it takes the risk away for the client, you do still have some risk. So then I started doing a price range. So rather than just a fixed price for the cleanup, you give the client a price range. The client knows your pricing, and they know that it won't exceed the maximum range. You again have an agreed upon outcome with the client, but your pricing factors in unexpected surprises. But you're still wondering, how much should I charge? Because I see you ask that all the time in my Facebook group. So here's what most bookkeepers think about when they think about pricing: volume of transactions, number of bank accounts, maybe like their stuff in undeposited funds, maybe they have old receivables, old payables. You're definitely thinking about how many hours it will take. And many of you want to make sure you give your client a fair price. And as I said, I see many of you give all of this information in the Facebook posts that I read in my group and other groups. It's all tied to transactions, right? Volume of transactions, number of bank accounts. I see you focus a lot on that. what I want you to start thinking about is, why does the client need a cleanup? Okay, so let me give you an example. Let's say water. Okay, you can go somewhere and buy a bottle of water. Okay, bottle of water, and well, you can go to the grocery store and get a case of water for very inexpensive, right? $3 to $5, probably, just a just basic water. You can go some places and, like, say, my local farmers market, they'll sell you water for like $1 bottle. Then you can go, say, to, like, here in Houston, maybe the Astros game, and now that bottle of water is going to be about, I don't know, $7. Okay, and if you are dying of thirst in a desert, I'm sure you would be willing to pay any amount for water. So what makes the water more valuable in one situation versus another? Is, why do you need the water? Or are you at a different type of venue where, like at the airport, that I can't go anywhere to buy water, I have to buy their water? And so you need to consider, why does the client need a cleanup? Many times, and as I said, we're in the midst of tax season here in the US, it's because they need a tax return done. And so they have to have clean financials so they can get a tax return done. So there's going to be a higher sense of urgency to get those books done before the tax deadline. Maybe it's because they would like to sell their business in a few years, and they need to start establishing good financial practices and show financials that really tell the story of their business, and make it look as good as possible so they can sell the business. Maybe they want to bring in investors. So there are many reasons why they may need that cleanup, and you need to know why. Think also of the time frame. When do they need the cleanup? Tax deadline is coming up, April 15th. I'm sure some of you are getting people right now desperate for a cleanup, and they need it well before April 15th because their tax accountant still has to do the tax return. So what is the time frame for the cleanup? Think of the size of the business. A business owner who maybe makes, say, $100,000 a year is very different from a business that grosses $1 million in revenues a year, maybe $5 million in revenue a year. So we can't focus on number of transactions. We need to think about the size of the business. And also, a business that is bigger, in many cases, has a greater ability to pay you for their services. Think of your value, your ability to solve your clients' problems, and solve their cleanup problems. You need to consider your value. Think of your niche. We have an e-commerce niche. There aren't a lot of bookkeepers and accountants who specialize in e-commerce or who specialize in Shopify. It's fairly complex. So think of your niche. Now focus also on the number of months that you're cleaning up. How many months? Is it 2 months? Is it 12 months? Think of complexity. And then start to think about volume of transactions and number of accounts and those other things. So really focus on that when it comes to pricing. And again, some of you, maybe this is new to you, and you know, sometimes we have to pull a number out of the air, just like, okay, I'm going to charge you this for a cleanup. And then as you gain more experience, you'll be able to charge more for a cleanup. But remember your value. Your value comes from your ability to clean up your clients' books and to take them from mess to success. There's value in removing or alleviating negative emotions. Remember the pain points that we were listening for earlier. Those are things that they're keeping up that business owner, keeping them up at night. They're worried. They're worried that, okay, I have to get my taxes done and my books are a mess, or I don't even know what my business is doing. they're worried, and your ability to take away those negative emotions has value. And there's value in meeting deadlines and helping them meet their goals. And I love a comment here, Donna Reed, and I'm going to quote you here shortly, Donna, but Donna says, fair is a matter of perspective, and it really is. And as I said, is $1 per bottle of water fair versus $5 or $10 for a bottle of water? It just depends on the situation. So let's go over a method for pricing cleanups. Method A, the amount that you charge for your monthly bookkeeping times the number of months. So if we really don't know how to price this cleanup, let's just start with this method. Okay, so we're just going, let's say that you were going to charge $500 a month times 12 months. That is $6,000. And I know some of you either mark up or mark down that amount. So for example, let's say that, we are very efficient in our cleanups, and we charge 75% of what we would charge them if we were doing the cleanup, or rather the bookkeeping on a monthly basis. So let's say that, okay, you took that $6,000, multiplied it by 75%. That gives you $4,500. And then when you're talking to your client about what the price will be for the cleanup, you will tell them that the pricing will range from $4,000 to $5,500. This is a very fast method of pricing, and I've done every kind of pricing method. I think I've spent like 20 hours putting together a pricing spreadsheet on Excel. I have counted transactions. I have looked at number of bank accounts, and I just finally got tired of it's too stressful. Pricing is stressful, and it takes too long. And we need to be able to price work quickly so that we can sign those clients up. Because the more time that they have to think about it, they're just going to talk themselves out of it or go with somebody else. So this is the method that I have been using actually for quite some time. Another method, estimated number of hours times an hourly rate. If you go this route of, you know what, I think it's going to take me 24 hours to do this cleanup, and it's going to be at $100 an hour, and I'm just using $100 just for the ease of math, okay? So 24 hours times $100 an hour is $2,400. Now you do need to mark that up to take into account administrative time, just communication with the client, onboarding, etc. So in this particular case, the $2,400 plus 20% is $2,880. And then I will tell the client the pricing will range from $2,900 to $3,500. But this method is dependent on your ability to estimate how long the work will take, and not everybody's very good at that. But it is a method of pricing. My third method, and this is my Donna Reed method, and Donna, I stole this from you, but Donna just says, you know what will make you happy to work with this client? So don't worry about how long it'll take, or just like what will make it worth your while, okay? But consider onboarding and administrative time. Consider opportunity time. Am I taking a client that is going to take up a lot of my time, and maybe I could be working and finding a better client? And consider also whether, do you have a proven method for doing a cleanup for that type of client? Because in the past, I used to take every kind of client for everything, and that takes a lot of time to now I'm doing this kind of cleanup for a veterinary company, and I'm doing this other kind of cleanup for a construction company, for a nonprofit. All of that takes time and effort. So if you have a proven method, like in our case for cleaning up our Shopify clients box, we can get through that cleanup a lot quicker than a one-off type of cleanup. And so just to give you an example, what does this look like? So we were working with a client who needed us to set up her QuickBooks and integrate it with Shopify. And we did that. And she's a very small client. So the setup was a small project. We usually do that just so that, okay, if the client wants to continue working with us, then at least we've set everything up for them. So then she wanted us to catch up her books. But as I said, she's a very tiny client and can't afford our monthly bookkeeping. But let me go back to what I said. Why does she need the catch up in this case? Why does she need her books caught up? Because it's tax time. What kind of time frame does she have? That's where we focused on. Okay, we know that she needs this. We know that there's a time situation here. And then, okay, what do we want to charge for this service so that it makes it worth our while and she gets what she needs? And we agreed on a price, and we're working on her books right now. So method A, method B, and then method C is just what makes you happy to work with that client. But regardless of what you do, make sure that you get paid upfront. Make sure that you're getting at least 50% upfront. And even if you're charging by the hour, that you are getting a block of hours. A lot of bookkeepers charge for in 10-hour blocks and getting paid upfront. In our case, and I forgot to update this slide, we now get paid weekly for cleanups. And so, for example, let's say that we're doing a $6,000 cleanup. We then get paid over 6 weeks, $1,000 a week. Key takeaways. A paid diagnostic review helps you to qualify the client. It lowers the risk for the client and allows you to get a clear scope of work. You position yourself as a specialist by diagnosing your client's books and recommending services. You give the client a price range to allow for surprises, and regardless of how much you charge for a cleanup, always get paid upfront, at least 50%. And remember, a client is not a client unless you get paid upfront and have a signed engagement letter. Here are some resources for you. My YouTube channel at 5mbvideo.com. Check out the YouTube playlist, QuickBooks Online Cleanup and Diagnosis. I mentioned that earlier. It's on here again. This is where I go into all of the different balance sheet and profit and loss accounts and show you how to review and diagnose those accounts. I'll talk about the 5MB Academy here shortly. And if you want to be signed up to be notified about my latest content, webinars, courses, videos, etc., you can scan the QR code or go to the link provided. But I did want to quickly tell you about the 5MB Academy, where you can become a confident bookkeeper. So after, as I said, doing hundreds of cleanups, working with by now thousands of clients, and in many cases doing cleanups for clients who would tell me, you know what, my previous bookkeeper messed up my books. I was so tired of hearing my previous bookkeeper messed up my books, and thought either I can do something about this or I can ignore this because it's a problem in our industry. And I thought, I'm going to do something about it. And I started putting together online courses based initially on what my audience was telling me, my group members were telling me in my Facebook group. And really, after hundreds of cleanups, as I said, we've done many, we've seen it all, I feel. We put together a proven system for diagnosing and cleaning up the books that led to us doing very profitable cleanups. And as a result, I put together 3 courses. One is the QBO Paid Diagnostic Review System. This is the complete process for discovering and diagnosing your client's biggest QBO messes. Includes all the step-by-step tutorials, checklists, the report of findings and recommendations template, and much more. I also put together the complete QBO cleanup system. This is my full system for training, my full system and training rather, and that shows you everything that you need to do a cleanup for your client. And then you can also purchase the 2-course bundle, which gives you the best price. If you're interested in these courses and all of the other 5 MBA Academy courses. Here's the link for the cleanup courses. So the QR code will take you to the cleanup courses, and you can use the discount code 10 off in the checkout page for a 10% discount. And I hope that Jill is sharing. Jill, if you would share those links with them, that would be great, and put the discount code. And also the discount code is good for any other course on the 5MB Academy. All right, so let me see. So again, Jill, if you can hear me, which I think you can, if you can share the links to the courses and the discount code with everyone. So in the meantime, I'm going to switch over. Give me 1 second to get the Q&A in front of me. And then I will answer your questions. And let's see, share screen. All right. And actually, hold on 1 second. Okay, I am sharing. I wasn't sure what I was sharing. All right, I am sharing the Q&A. All right, so let me go to the Q&A. And Elichaisa is asking, what if after you do the diagnostic review, you realize you don't want to take on the client? What do you tell them? And that has happened before. Sometimes it's because of what the client needs and what we can do is not in alignment, or I don't feel like we can really bring value to them. And I will let them know. So I will say, like, here's everything we found, but you know what? I don't think I'm the best person to help you with these issues, and then refer them to someone else. Or just one thing that we as bookkeepers and accountants have this need to help people, and it's a very noble desire, but we have to also learn to say no. And then sometimes it's just like, you know what, I don't think we'd be a good fit for working together. Diana is asking, do you get paid up front to do the diagnostic review? Yes, we get paid 100% upfront for the diagnostic review. Gloria is asking, why not request the tax return for sole proprietors? We don't, because sole proprietors in the US don't file a balance sheet. And you have to reconcile the balance sheet. You don't reconcile the profit and loss. So we don't request it from them. Linnell is asking, do you get pushback from clients about providing sensitive information when with no long-term relationship has been established? We do not, but I think part of that comes from what I call positioning, which is how, like, our branding and how we present ourselves in the market for what we say that we do and how we do it. So some of that goes back to your marketing materials and your website. Also, then how you, I would say even how you come across to the client. Or do you come across professional in terms of how they book a call with you, the reminders that they're receiving? And obviously all of this ideally is all automated. Then you're going to do a Zoom call. Then you're going to have a very professional conversation with them. Then the next step, and I always tell them, the next step is you need to, I will send you an engagement letter. You need to review it and sign it. And so it's really about how you present yourself to that prospective client, and then how comfortable they feel working with you. And in many cases, and I'm gonna go off on a little bunny trail, but it even has to do with what kind of connection have they made with you, because many of you don't have enough about you on your marketing materials or on your website. And believe me, a prospective client will check out your website if you have one, or will check out your Facebook page. So you need to have enough about you so that they can make a connection with you and feel that they're working with a real person. Del Marie's asking, what exactly are you looking for on the client's tax return when doing the cleanup? It's not so much what I'm looking for. You are supposed to reconcile the balance sheet in QuickBooks to the balance sheet or the Schedule L on the tax return, and that is for U.S. businesses that are filing as S Corp, C Corp, and partnerships. Natasha is asking, how do we get a copy of the checklist? The diagnostic review checklist is included in the paid course, QBO paid diagnostic review. Ashley's asking, if you mark down a cleanup from monthly bookkeeping, doesn't that incentivize people to not do monthly bookkeeping and just wait for a cleanup for a discount? Possibly, and some people do that. We don't take clients to come to us once a year for a cleanup and go away and come back for another cleanup, or if they do, there will not be a markdown. But our particular services include a lot of what I would call a white glove type services, and that's why we're not necessarily discounting. It's just more of, we're not charging them for a service that we don't provide, that they would get monthly, but they wouldn't get when they're doing the cleanup. But yes, there are some people that will try to come back to you once a year, and it's always up to you to decide whether you accept them or not as a client. Myra is asking, what would you get? Would you get accountant access to their banking to see the missing transactions? No. So here's where I think that, okay, we don't know each other well enough yet, so you probably don't trust me to do that, even though we would request read-only access, but we just get PDF copies of their bank statements. Dara's asking, what price for QuickBooks cleanup for 12 months if diagnostic review? Wait, what price? So what would we charge for to clean up the 12 months if we did the diagnostic price for 900? Oh, so you're saying, like, what do we charge for cleanup? We started, well, our bare minimum is 2,500, but for the types of clients that we get when we're cleaning up their books, is usually about 10,000 minimum for a year if we're cleaning up the full year. Elichaisa is saying, asking, how do you price sections that are missing in QBO? For example, client never entered them and bank feeds are not connected, but you know that the client should be doing sale. So you're saying, like, the client does some things and you do others. I don't necessarily worry about what they're doing versus what I'm doing, because again, we're just going to overthink it. So I would just focus on what would I charge this client monthly if, let's say, they're doing their invoicing and their payroll and I'm doing everything else. Gloria asks, do you set up the Zoom overview meeting during the discovery and sales call? No, I do not. So the workflow is that they're going to sign an engagement letter and pay us up front. Then we're going to go through onboarding and get everything that we need from them. Then we will do the diagnostic, and then we will send them a link to book the Zoom call with us so we can go over the report with them. Kate asks, do you really write this all out, or do you dictate it or use AI? In the beginning, we wrote it all out. We have a lot of canned content now where we copy and paste, but you can definitely dictate. I don't know about AI, but yeah, there's ways to save time with that. And we've learned over time, it really is optional. Do you want to tell them, all the dates and how many transactions you found, etc.? It's up to you. I've found that it is effective, but there is, it can take time to do that. Vermont asks, on average, how much time do you spend performing the diagnostic? Performing the diagnostic is probably 3 hours, maybe for a very complex review is about 5 hours. Humphrey asks, after cleanup, do you charge the client for catch-up, or will the cleanup include producing financial statements, or do you charge for that differently? We do. Okay, so there are rules here in the U.S. as to what we can do, because I am a CPA, and so we cannot prepare financial statements for our clients. Long story, so I will just probably avoid talking about the long story. So we do not prepare financial statements for our clients. Our clients self-serve those statements from QuickBooks Online. But to answer your question about, in my mind, a catch up and a cleanup is sometimes kind of, it's all meshed together, because rarely do you have a client whose books are not messed up. And so we charge for the catch up and the cleanup together. And I hope I answered your question correctly. Diana asked, are there manuals or books for the courses when we purchase the courses? So no books or manuals. It's all video training, similar to what you see on my 5-minute bookkeeping YouTube channel. The style of teaching that I do, which is very methodical, very short and to the point, very step by step, is what you will find in my courses, but no manuals or books. Monica asks, how long do the courses take to get through? Each course of the cleanup and the diagnostic review are 6 to 8 hours each. Lakeisha asks, what if you purchase the colossal cleanup and then you get the bundle discount if you yes. So if you buy one course now and later say, hey, I want the bundle, just reach out to me. There's a contact page on the 5MBA Academy, and then we'll upgrade you to the bundle and then give you a discount code for you to get the bundle price for the second course. Brenda's asking, do you ever offer part or all of your diagnostic review towards cleanup? I think I just answered that question. So if you want to, if you buy one of the courses, you want to upgrade to the bundle, reach out to us and we'll give you a discount code for the second course. DB asked, do we handle receipts? I'm not sure if you mean in terms of for bookkeeping. And so I will answer, that's what I'm understanding the question to be, so I will answer it that way. In the US, we're not required to handle or store receipts for our clients. And so you'll see that most of the modern virtual bookkeepers are not doing that in the US. Marla asked, do you get an engagement letter for the paid diagnostic review? Yes. And that engagement letter template is included in the diagnostic review course. We also have a separate engagement letters course that I believe we included that engagement letter as well. Rhonda asked, after cleanup, I want to help DIY clients with training. Do you have recommended methods? Yes. And we did that. We have done that a lot in the past. And we do it through Zoom. But in terms of method, I might have to know more. Why don't you ask this question in my Facebook group, and then we can get into more details on how you can do that. But yes, you can, and it can be very profitable to do training with your clients. Margaret asks, how long is the discount code for? Indefinitely. You can use it anytime on any of the courses to get a 10% discount. Myra says, so I know you mentioned that we get the tax returns. Are tax returns needed for previous years that the client filed for an LLC? Okay, so an LLC is a disregarded entity. So it would depend on how they're filing their tax returns. So it would either be, well, it could be any number of things. So as I said, if they're filing for an S Corp, C Corp, or partnership, then you would need just the previous tax return. You don't need all of the previous tax returns. Laura asked, do you charge more when you need to break apart personal and business accounts? We don't always know that in the diagnostic review phase, but yes, absolutely, for a cleanup. But I personally do not take clients if they're commingling just because it's too much of a mess. But if that's your superpower, then by all means you should do that and charge accordingly. Brenda asked, my question was for the clients, if you charge X for the diagnostic review, do you credit part of all okay, so question was, and I do get this asked a lot, if you charge the client for the diagnostic review, do you credit the full amount of the diagnostic review or part of that to the cleanup? We do not, but a lot of people do. And it's really up to you. I think maybe once or twice I credit to the client like 50% of the diagnostic went toward the cleanup. And that's just because I knew that it was a client that I really wanted to work with and that I thought we would have a long-term relationship. But most of the time we don't, just because of how we market ourselves and how we have a very specialized niche, and we think there's a lot of value in just doing the diagnostic review. And Vanessa asked, do you include past months in the current year cleanup? For example, they want a cleanup of January 2020 of 2023 and monthly bookkeeping in 2024. How do you charge for January through February? So yes, in that case, so if they need 2023 cleaned up, but now we're in March, I would then include January and February in the cleanup as well. And okay, so we're at 2:45, and I see we have just 3 more questions. So I will answer the questions that are in front of me, and then we will wrap it up. And if you have questions that I didn't get to answer, please ask in my Facebook group. So Aaron asks, how do you deal with small or new business owners who don't know what they don't know and have trouble seeing the value of your services? You cannot, you can't convince someone of value. And so if they don't see the value, they're not an ideal client, and you just move on. There's no sense in trying to make someone see value when they don't see it. The same with if somebody's selling a $10 bottle of water and I'm thirsty, but I don't see the value, I'm not going to pay $10 for the bottle of water. Nika asks, is there a way to categorize expenses to ask my accountant and send auto report to the client for review? Not within QuickBooks, but you can use a Keeper app is one of the apps that will do that. And Diane is asking, and give me a second because I'm talking about water now, got thirsty. If they only want 2023 cleaned up, but you notice items in 2023 are not correct, how do you handle that if they don't think they need to deal with it or don't wish to deal with it when taxes have been filed? Well, you always have to clean up the balance sheet. So the profit and loss, maybe it is what it is, but the balance sheet has to be cleaned up. And in many cases, you have to coordinate any adjustments that may affect a prior period where a tax return was done. You need to coordinate with a tax preparer in order to decide the best method for, what are we changing a previous period or changing or making adjustments in the current period. Humphrey asked, or I guess is clarifying, producing the financials, do you mean we should not produce the profit and loss and balance sheet for their client or for the clients? No, I said we don't, because we're not able to do that here in the state of Texas. Because I am a CPA and again, long story. So, but no, you can do whatever you need to do to report to your clients as long as it's in compliance with your rules and laws. But we can't here in the state of Texas. Bree is asking, do you have a resource that shows how to reconcile the previous tax return to QBO for a new file or for an S Corp? I show that in my complete QBO cleanup course. Take you step by step for how to do that. You may also find a video from Hector Garcia, I believe, has something like that where he reconciles the balance sheet. And okay, so last 2 questions. Laura asks, how about the clients that don't help giving you info? Okay, so this is where I said that if you're doing a diagnostic review, now you get to see what the client is like and they're not going to give you anything. Now you know that this is not a good client because they're not going to give you anything during the cleanup. And so this is where you can then fire the client. during the diagnostic review. So we have some wording in our engagement letter that allows us to end the engagement without having to give money back. And we include that wording in the engagement letters course on 5MB Academy. And last question for Margaret. I have seen people categorize to Ask My Accountant and click on that section in the balance sheet or P&L that you can download. Yeah, so you can download an Excel spreadsheet, and we used to do that back in the day, but now we use the Keeper app to automate that whole process to send the client questions. All right, I'm about to lose my voice, so I think we will wrap it up. So thank you so much. Let me stop sharing here. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited that you have spent this time with me. Any other questions that you have, go to the 5-Minute Bookkeeping community on Facebook to ask your questions, and I will see you there. And I will see you at next month's webinar. Take care, everyone. Bye.